Yo! Welcome back to One More Mana. My name's Derek, and today I am digging into my first deck tech for the new set, Modern Horizon. Not gonna lie, having a minor freak out that they're finally printing Yawgmoth. So, spoiler alert, that might be next week's deck tech. But for today, I need you guys to get excited about one of the coolest and strangest legendary creatures I have seen in a while, and that's Morophon the Boundless. So let's take a look at Morophon. Alright, it's a 7 mana 6/6 with a whole bunch of abilities that basically all do different crazy things. So it's a changeling, so it's all creature types. Very important. And it's also going to, when it enters the battlefield, you get to choose a creature type, and all those creatures that you have of that type cost Wooburg less to cast, but it only reduces the colored mana. Also super interesting. And then in addition, it also acts as a lord, giving all their creatures of that type +1/+1. Now there's a lot of different directions to go. I did see a lot of people when it first got spoiled. You can go slivers, especially because slivers have a lot of colored mana symbols, and you can basically make it so you're casting slivers for free or almost free a lot of the time. Elementals seem interesting. There's just so many different creature types that this can, give you an opportunity to play in a different way, or even obscure creature types. Maybe you're one of those people that really wants an Ufi commander. Ufi? O-U-P-H-E. I don't know if that's Oof or Ufi. One of my favorite creature types. But maybe you wanted one of those. This is that. This is every creature type, and it gives you any weird tribe, any tribe you could ever think of you can play. And believe it or not, I actually didn't go tribal. What I decided to do, and I was inspired to do this actually by MTG Must, that has a Mistform Ultimates deck where he kind of runs a bunch of lords and stuff with it because it's all creature types. And that was just in blue. I started thinking about, if you started just getting the best lords from all the different creature types in every color and threw them all in a deck, what would happen? Well, this is what would happen. So that's basically how I built this deck. The Morophon deck that I put together is just the superstars of all the lords of every creature type in a deck in a Voltronish build for this commander. There are tons of creatures because you want all the lords. I didn't realize how many creature types there were and how many lords there were for all the creature types. I figured, I might have to, slim pickings, I'll get what I can and have to fill in spots. When I tell you, I went down that list and it was almost like 50 something, and I only picked the lords that I liked. These weren't even all of them. It was impressive. There were just tons of different options, and you can just build it in so many ways, which is super exciting. Quick aside, for anybody who isn't familiar, a lord is essentially, I don't know the first card that was named like this. I know Lord of Atlantis is one of the older ones, but it's essentially a card that acts as an anthem for a certain creature type. So Lord of Atlantis, as an example, it gives all merfolk +1/+1. And those lord effects are abundant on lots of creatures, and there's also some twist mixed in. So right away, there's some challenges with Morophon if you wanted to build it in this weird Lord Voltron way. One of the problems is going to be it's a 7 mana commander. If it dies a couple times, you don't want to be paying that much mana for a Voltron commander that doesn't have evasion or anything like that. But that's where the lords come in. So I'm going to get right into the creatures. Starting with the creatures, I'm going to break them down into a few different categories, the different categories of lords that we have in order to make Morophon cheaper, more dangerous, and outright scary in some situations. So the first category of lords, or really just creatures in this deck, are cards that are going to reduce the cost of Morophon for you. This is going to be cards like Goblin War Chief, or even Dragon Speaker Shaman, which isn't a lord, but it's doing the tribal, mana reduction thing. And there's a lot. I was shocked by just how many cards there are like this that reduce the casting cost of a certain creature type. Well, since Morophon's all of them, I don't think you're ever going to be paying full cost for this. There's so many I was able to put in this deck that it's real easy just to get a few out. Now, again, this deck is going to be very weak to board wipes in a way it's like normal Voltron decks are weak to edict type effects. This is going to be weak to board wipes. But the best thing about this is your power is so spread out that targeted removal, it's not going to do a bunch. You might have 3 or 4 cards that together is reducing the casting cost of your commander by 6 or 7. There's really going to be times you can play it for free or almost free, just you have so many cost reduction effects from these lords. So the first thing we want to do, just like any Voltron deck really, you want to be able to protect your commander. Now, again, this is a 7-drop. You don't want to just be playing it and just having it die right away. You want to be able to protect it. So there's a lot of cards that are going to do this. You could have Scion of Una and Lord of the Unreal, which able to give it either Hexproof or Shroud. And one of the coolest things about this actually is giving our commander Shroud isn't a bad thing, because a lot of time with Voltron, Shroud is complicated. You want to give it Shroud because you want to be able to equip it with things or target it to pump it. We don't care about this. None of these effects are targeting it. It's just the universal anthems for our board. So you can give our commander Shroud, even in the case of, let's say we had Lightning Greaves on it, you're giving it Shroud. It doesn't matter. Do all these other effects, it's still going to get with still having that protection. Well, let's say worst case, you give it Hexproof, you give it Shroud. What if someone just board wipes and blows everything up? Well, we got protection for that too. With cards like Knight Exemplar and Timber Protection, or even Sliver Hivelord, let's just make it indestructible. And this is crazy because, especially with combinations of these, now it's not like the same type of lock that a Sliver deck is going to do, for example, where all your Slivers are just Hexproof, Shroud, indestructible. It's not that crazy. This is much more of a casual feel to it, but still, you get a combination of these, all of a sudden your commander has Hexproof, indestructible. It makes it really hard to remove, and people have to start wasting removal on the other pieces on your board and not being able to deal with that big threat. Speaking of threat, I haven't even mentioned, a lot of these cards are giving it +1/+1 in addition to these. So not only is this thing going to be hard to deal with, indestructible, Hexproof, it's going to be a whole lot bigger than 6/6 also. Well, let's say they get around that Hexproof. Let's say they get around that Shroud. Let's say they get around the indestructible. Maybe they play Black Sun's End if it's something like that. There's answers for that too. You could play cards like Mad Auntie and Crowstone Warchief and just regenerate it. This gives all creatures of that specific type, which again, Morophon's all of them, it gives them regenerate. And that's again, not a lock, but it's a situation where it becomes so much work just to get, you end up having to go through so many layers just to attempt to get to Morophon. Sometimes people might be better off just hoping it doesn't swing at them rather than spending all of their removal just to get to him. Well, that's all fine and dandy. We're able to protect it. We're buffing it up. But what are we going to do with all that? We have this massive protected creature with a bunch of power. How are we going to make this effective, essentially? Well, there's a few ways. You always want to, in any Voltron deck, you always want to be able to, get damage through. You want evasion. Well, there's tons of that in this deck. There's cards that are going to give it flying. There's cards that are going to give it trample. But one of my favorite ones is Shifting Sliver. Now, this is just going to make it so unless they're playing a Sliver deck, they just can't block it. And when you get some of these Lord effects, 7's always the magic number because that's, 3 hits is commander damage out. It's already at 6, and basically every one of these Lords is pumping it at least by a little bit. So it's going to be well above that 7 a lot of the time. And 7, Shroud, unblockable, indestructible, all these ridiculous things, it turns into a player might be dead real fast. That's what that all adds up to. And that's really just the beginning of it. I really encourage you to go check out this deck list. Unless I went through and read card by card, every Lord offers something different. Everyone's pumping it by a certain amount. Some are giving it double strike or first strike or flying. There's so much. So I'm not going to sit here and read through every one of them, but definitely go check it out because it is crazy. And the most fun thing to me is every game can play out different because you're going to get your commander out and different combinations of these Lords are going to create just different buffs and different kind of obstacles for your opponents to get through, and in a super fair way because these Lords themselves a lot of times don't have that protection and stuff like that. So you're able to deal with them. Just the way they work seems for like a very fun, fair, challenging Voltron type deck that I think would be a lot of fun to play and play against. Taking a look at the artifacts, most of this is just mana rocks. They're going to allow us to produce colored mana. And this is a 5-color deck, and a lot of these cards, it's a very widespread. Sometimes 5-color decks focus in certain colors. The color pie in this thing, if you look at the tapped out, is just super spread out. The one artifact that really excites me in this deck is Diviner's Wand. This is a really cool equipment. The thing I love about this card is it says whenever a wizard comes into play, you can just attach Diviner's Wand to it, which is great because our commander, also a wizard. It's everything. So that you don't have to worry about the equip cost. And it's also cool because it gives evasion. Now, a lot of the time we're going to have it from the Lords we have, but if we don't, it says when you draw a card, target creature gets +1/+1 in flying and also gains the ability to just dump 4 colorless mana and draw a card. This is awesome. It's a mana sink, it's evasion, it's card draws, it's just so many things we want, and a lot of the time we can get around paying that equip cost also. Taking a look at the enchantments, there's a few really cool ones here. One's Rooftop Storm. This is just play your commander for free. As far as I can tell, you're still playing commander tax because the casting cost is 0, but you still pay the additional cost. But still, why not just play your 7-drop commander for free because it's a zombie. Other cards like Steely Resolve and Cover of Darkness are great. That's more protection if you didn't have enough already. And the Shroud with Steely Resolve is perfect because, again, we don't need to target it much. And then Cover of Darkness is cool. More evasion, giving it fear, being able to get more damage in. On top of that, Full Moon's Rise is awesome because it's going to give our commander trample. Again, more ways to sneak damage in because it is a werewolf. And it's going to allow it to regenerate itself. This card is amazing. It's really doing the protection, the pumping it, and giving it a way to get damage. And this card is the perfect tribal card for this deck. Looking at the sorceries, there's two I want to talk about. One is Conflux. I don't really make 5-color decks much, so it is so cool to be able to play this card. Now, I realize in a lot of decks, if you probably cast this, it's probably to win the game. We're not really trying to do all that. Hopefully we'll eventually win the game. We're not trying to just get 5 cards to combo off. But my favorite thing about this is you could essentially just pick your 5 favorite lords, or maybe 5 lords you haven't got a chance to see on the battlefield yet. The options this gives you. Normally I'm not a huge fan of tutoring, but in a deck like this where it's fun to test out different combinations of the lords, this is a great card to be able to be like, okay, I haven't played this one with this one, let me try this, and just mix it up and try new stuff. Whelming Wave is also awesome because this is a board wipe for everything except your commander. So you can basically just reset the board of creatures, keep your commander there, and then just, start dropping lords again and get into a board state where you can get in for more commander damage. Looking at the instance, nothing too exciting. Probably the card that I like the most here is Spell Swindle. Really what it lets you to do is get access to more colors of mana. It serves as mana fixing and ramp because of those treasures, which again is amazing in a 5-color deck. Speaking of 5 colors, taking a look at the lands. Build the lands however you want it. This is the type of deck where I put it together with a lot of the cheaper, I think the cons fetches, and basically all the shock lands because they just got reprinted. But do it however you want. This is the type of deck, especially you're not trying to win fast. So if you're just running tri-lands and guild gates and going the whole gate route, it's probably going to work just as well. It's really not going to affect you too much. Don't let, especially for a deck like this, having a budget should not restrict you from going 5 colors. One of the first decks that I attempted to put together, it was bad for a lot of reasons, not the mana base, was I got super excited about Josh Lee Kwan, the Command Zone, his whole 5-color Nekusar, and I tried to put together my own version with a Chromat. And it was terrible, but the thing was, my mana was never the problem. I was all tri-lands and guild gates, and most of the time I had access to my colors, especially with stuff like Command Tower and Path of Ancestry. You're going to be able to get access to your colors. So I would say that this mana base that I have here is pretty expensive. Don't get focused on that, basically. Just playing tri-lands, guild gates, that type of stuff. You should be able to get access to your colors just fine, and the deck should play great. All right, so now we're moving on to the best part, the game-winning step. All these lords, all these ridiculous combinations of creature types, how are they all going to come together and help you win the game? So I hate to say this is probably going to be the most boring how to win the game-winning step ever because there's really only one way we're trying to do it in this deck. We're trying to make our commander as threatening as possible with all these different layers of lord effects and just beat face with it. That's really the only way there is to go in this deck. You're trying to just knock players out with commander damage. This deck is all about just getting random, crazy combinations of lords together, getting as much power and shroudness and indestructible and trample and flying and everything as you can onto this big, ridiculous changeling thing that's your commander and just swinging at people. That's really the whole purpose of this deck. So it's not as involved as other decks. You can throw in as many alternate win cons as you want. Especially with a commander like this, maybe you want to throw some infect in there. Shockingly enough, that's not the route I went. I know. That's going to be next week. But there's a whole bunch of different routes you can go, especially in 5 colors. There's lots of different backup combos or stuff you can put together. I wasn't really interested in that. I just think getting to play Morophon with all these different lords and trying to put some combination together that was able to knock somebody out just seems like so much fun, and it's a challenge, and I really like that. So that's going to do it for this week's video. Please, again, I'm going to super emphasize it, especially for this week. Please check out the deck list. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear about, there's a lot of lords, like I said. I may have missed a few, probably. If there's a lord that you think would be great in this deck, please let me know. If there's any maybe tribal cards I forgot about, definitely hit me up about it. This seems like a super, super fun deck to play. And again, I think it'd be just as much fun to play against because it's going to create just some ridiculous combinations of things. And even just like the board though side of it, the fact that you're going to have Lord of Atlantis teaming up with this Goblin Chieftain, teaming up with this Timber Protector, teaming up with a knight, it's just really, I don't know. I find it really funny and it seems super cool to me. As always, another shout out to the patrons. We really do love y'all. We appreciate y'all. And I will see you guys next time.